Hello, everybody, once again. As promised, I think I had sent a message to you a couple days ago, something like that, indicating that I would be reaching out with a video that was going to be important in the sort of overall picture of not just the troubleshooting pieces of kind of figuring out some of the issues that have to do with the labs, with JASP, and the various programs that we're using in the course, but also trying to find a way that sort of taking those things into account was also going to try and kind of balance things out um, so that the glitches and the various troubles that we're running into um, while we're still sorting through them, and it's landing, of course, in my world, and I know it's landing in yours as well, that one of my biggest goals was to make absolutely sure that just because we were having to kind of go through these growing pains together, that to my mind, my way of thinking anyway, it's extraordinarily unfair to expect you to roll along with all of that, have to work through the troubleshooting, spend the extra time and the effort, that sort of comes alongside that, and then just simply have to suck it up and follow the same the same path that we had sort of set out at the outset. So what I want to try to do here, and I'll sort of explain it in other messages and try to work really hard to make sure that this is very clear, but like with the last video message I sent you, I always find this to be a much more accessible and for lack of a better description, I suppose, just easier to communicate, particularly when we're making bigger changes like the one that I want to propose to you here. So, just a really brief kind of recap or a summary of sort of what I indicated in that previous message, which is that particularly with JASP itself, I know there were a lot of questions initially kind of around perusal and around various pieces of what we were doing, and most of that is smoothed out. What the key issue that seems to be taking place at this point is the the ability for JASP to seemingly talk to itself. Um, Even for those of you who are had we troubleshot you getting JASP, loading JASP, having access to it, working through the various nuances and finer points of it. But even after all of that, at this point in time, a lot of you have seen already in Canvas. I've been sending messages through the assignments or through email, through different portals within that for some of you, I'm receiving the labs that contain the JASP files, that contain the data files, the metadata, the documents that address the questions, and all the various pieces that go into those zipped files. The consistent issue that keeps taking place has to do with my ability for what's seeming to be close to half, maybe even the majority of you, that when I receive your JASP files that appear to be saved correctly, insofar as I can tell from this end, I absolutely cannot get them to open on any machine that I'm working with any version of JASP that I have. I've tried to work through JASP support. I've tried to work through working with my colleagues. I have been reaching out to all manner of sources. And with some of the files, I mean, for a great many of you too, I'm receiving your files. They pop right up on my screen. Everything's right there. It couldn't be more clear. It couldn't be more easy. And then still for others, there's just not one single solution that I've been able to find outside of having to contact people individually, have everything resaved, rezipped, or cut and paste it to a document, or take a screenshot, and of course, all of the fun growing pains that are coming with all of this. So, anyway, just alluding to that, I guess what I want to address here and try to, I guess you could call it a sort of proposal to you all. In my last video, I sort of said it was a proposal about kind of our moving week of time off, where we're sort of leaving it at the tail end, and that way it's kind of a mobile thing that you can employ at whatever stage in the term is best for you. And this as a proposal, maybe I mean a little more consistent with what you think of as a proposal. That is to say, I don't want to just spout this out by fiat and just say this is the way it's going to be. I actually do want to hear, for those of you who have thoughts or observations, opinions, feelings, whatever about this. I'm very, very, very open to hearing your feedback about this proposal and about moving forward in this way. It's my powerful suspicion that I don't think there's going to be a lot of broken hearts, or probably too many people that are going to take issue with the idea that I have, but one never knows. So let me try to address this as sort of clearly as I possibly can. And then as I put this out into the ether here for all of you to see, I'll be very curious to hear back from those of you who want to give some feedback on it. So, in a nutshell, because we've already been encountering these hurdles, various glitches, lots of troubleshooting, it's creating an extraordinary amount of extra work for all parties involved, right? For myself, for the other instructors of the course, and for you, which is what I'm the entire point of what I'm going to be driving at here. Due to that situation, and due to the fact that there has been not one single clear solution that I can get out of the software makers themselves, the IT people, the other instructors, so on. What we're facing right now in terms of particularly the labs, again, the problem primarily being with the JASP files, we need to kind of keep those in place. And so what that's going to create for us is you're going to have to kind of look out. I will be sending communications to some of you who, for whatever reason, seems to be taking place. But for those of you whose files I am absolutely incapable of accessing, we're going to have to find another way. As I alluded to a few of these already, in terms of maybe rather than keeping it in JASP, you can sort of cut and paste the content into something like a Word document. Screenshots, as I had also said, are a way to sort of capture, despite I can't just pull open the file, but I can see what's on your screen. I can see the file, I can see the work, I can see all the outcomes. These are all viable options. And for those of you whose files I'm unable to access, you'll be hearing from me, and then you and I can be in touch, and basically we'll hammer out what is going to be the most workable solution for you, what is going to create the least amount of trouble or pain in the neck and this sort of thing. To try and counterbalance this is the part where I think this is going to be welcomed news. So, with the course, like at the end of the day, end of the term, I suppose, to be more accurate, grades, points, the assessment of the course is going to be derived from going through the readings and participating in the annotations kind of / conversation. It works for the annotation piece, but it also sort of has a function almost like a discussion board too, right? As we all go and sort of collectively interact within the documents. So we have that piece, we'll keep that piece, and that's going towards our grades for the course. We have the quizzes, and so the quizzes, of course, pertaining to the readings, pertaining to the work, going through the sort of content, and is the most similar to what you would anticipate in any sort of given undergraduate course, multiple choice questions, a few others, that sort of thing. That we will continue as well. The labs, that's the piece as I've said, those will also continue. We will continue to work with JASP. We will continue to work through the labs to take the data sets, create those files, do the write-ups, all of those pieces. And then, of course, that's going to come with whatever interactive solutions that you and I come up with that are going to be workable between the two of us. The last piece, and the one that I probably haven't even really mentioned since like day one opening of the class video with the syllabus and that sort of a thing, was that we not having exams, and sort of in lieu of having a final exam for the course, what we had in place was sort of what was called the final project. This was going to be a far more sort of open-ended, creative project for individuals to take components of the course, ideas, methods, these kinds of things, and to create a sort of project out of those. And that was kind of to be the capstone, placed towards the end of the course, kind of in reference to the last video where I pointed out that our modules really only go up through kind of 9 weeks, despite the fact that there is a 10th week of traditional course and an 11th week that constitutes our final week. My proposal then to you all is, my inclination is, having said we're going to keep these pieces, quizzes, labs, readings and annotations, my proposal is that we take the project, the term project that would constitute sort of the last couple of weeks, and we remove it. And by remove it, I mean we very, very literally just delete it from the course altogether. Now, I'm going to qualify all that here in a moment, but what that's going to mean in the ultimate picture is those last 2 weeks, sort of the last week of classes and then the 11th week of finals week, as you're working on all of your other finals, as you're writing all of your papers and everything else that has to do with going into the end of the term, that frenetic spree to the finish line, this is going to be one big project, one big assignment that's just going to disappear from your schedule. Now, how do I reconcile that? Because there is while that, I think probably if you're not already jumping up and down, there's maybe a handful of you who would think, well, I'm not as comfortable with that because that constituted approximately 20% of the grade for the course. And so if folks are feeling like I'm not doing great on the quizzes, I don't like the way they're structured, I'm not performing extremely well, the labs are stressing me out, and we're having to deal with all this BS surrounding it anyway, so on and so forth, that project sort of constituted, like, this is a place where I can I can do some legwork on that is going to bolster other arenas where maybe you're not performing as well, or it's not somewhere where you thrive, that sort of thing. So I have thought about this too, and sort of within the package deal, I guess I'm trying to sell you right now, my proposal to you is that we don't just take the project, vanish it, and then just say we're going to take your grade from what's left. What I want to do is in the place, which is to say in the time period, in those last couple of weeks where you would be working on this project, developing it, creating it, putting it together, sharing it, all of the work that would go into that instead of that, we use that time still as a capstone, but we go back to, for instance, we've had all these quizzes already, we have more quizzes yet to come, the labs, things like that. As those grades, the feedback, everything flows into your particular grade book, your account, your messages, those sorts of things. We use that cap at the end of the semester, the end of the term rather, and I will provide alternatives, which is to say, I would go back in and I would give double takes or a retake, for instance, on some quizzes where you would have a handful where you could select, say, 2-3 quizzes to revisit, retake, and then take the best scores from the overall performance, which is to say you can go back to the ones you didn't feel as strong on, or the points weren't consonant with your performance or your learning, and we can make up for that. Have a redo and bolster the points from arenas where they weren't quite as strong. Same with the labs. So as we're going through these, and as I'm actually able to open your files and give you the feedback and the direct things like that, we can also use that time to go back, take this lab on linear regression, take the lab on comparing two means, whichever ones, taking the feedback that you've received and then employing that to improve it, resubmit it, and then instead of us creating this project that was, I don't know if anybody actually had gone far enough ahead to start to read about it. I've now unpublished it already, kind of in anticipation that this is likely the direction we're going to go. But all of that time, that work, the resources, the energy, the everything that you would be putting towards this big additional project now could go towards, let's revisit the places where you would like another chance, where you didn't feel good about this, that. We can go back there, build it back to a place that you are comfortable with. And then in doing so, for anybody who wasn't already jumping up and down about not having to do this big project at the very end of the term, for anyone who was concerned that that would deprive you of an opportunity to compensate or to bolster or to whichever actionable word you'd like to throw in there, this provides that opportunity to still do that. And it does it in a way where instead of adding a big, huge project on top of everything else, it allows us to go right back to just the meat and potatoes of what constitutes the course, and to improve upon it, and to give everybody that chance that we can revisit and then make those things successful. So in a nutshell, that's where my head is at. As I say, I never like moving things around too much in classes, to a very large degree. When we present you a syllabus on day one, that's sort of a contract between us and you, where we all kind of agree to, like, these are the terms, this is what to anticipate, this is what we're going to do. And so I never like rescinding on something like that. But in this case, it's done exclusively with the intention of, number one, just being very aware of the fact that this is a glitchy term, that there's a big learning curve for every one of us as we've redone this course. And for me, it is profoundly important that these courses be fair, that you are not put in a difficult situation, that you are not put at something that disadvantages you in relation to if you had taken this course in the spring term of this year when it was a completely different beast. So to my mind, this allows me to sleep better at night, knowing that it puts you in a much more powerful position to perform well in the class, to succeed. And as we still face having to kind of do some troubleshooting, have some back and forth with these things, at least we know that we've taken this massive piece out of the equation that gives us room, that gives us the ability, the time, and capacity to do these things. You will absolutely be seeing more messages from me, clarifying pieces of this, reiterating pieces of this. And as I kind of started this piece of the conversation too, reminding you that I do desperately want your feedback. I don't want this to just be, here's what popped into my head, and so that's what's going to happen to all of us now. I genuinely want to know what you think, and we'll absolutely take it to heart when we are kind of putting these ideas into a more concrete form. So I have been talking at you for 20 minutes already. I'm sorry for the very long video, but I desperately want to make sure that I'm clear, that this isn't left wishy-washy or ambiguous. So I hope this arrives to you as good news. I think that it will, but I know you're not a monolith. So we'll be in touch. There'll be some more conversation to go, but my hope is that upon getting this takes a weight off. It alleviates some stress and can assuage a little bit of the anxiety with all of it. So I will let you go for now. We will, of course, continue to be in touch. I do hope you're well. Hope you've had a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. All right.